Good evening and welcome to Monsters Among Us. I am your guide, Derek Hayes. Ooh, it's a cold one out there, folks. I just talked with my parents and it's in the single digits in the OHIO. And it's in the 20s here, which is pretty damn cold for Southern California. And from what I gather, it's chilly all over the country. Snow in Texas. Wind chills in Georgia. But it's warm and toasty here in the studio. And even if it wasn't, I have a feeling tonight's calls are spooky enough to get your blood pumping and your temperature up. And we're going to start off tonight in the state I was born in. A state full of tradition, full of mystery, and as of this week, full of national champions. Go Bucks. So, from the great state of Ohio, please welcome Regina to tonight's program.
Hi Derek, my name is Regina and I'm calling from Ohio. I wanted to tell you a little story that happened in my childhood home. This house was built in the year 1900. Upstairs, downstairs, basement, attic, pretty standard medium-sized home. Nothing crazy or special about it. It was extremely haunted. And I could tell you so many things that happened there, but I'm just going to tell you one story today, and I might call back another time with some other things. But I want to tell you something that happened to my mom one night. So one night, my mom is in her bedroom asleep. I was a baby at the time, so I was in my crib that was also in her room, and my two older sisters were asleep in their rooms upstairs. So she's fast asleep, and at some point in the night, she's awoken by what sounds like talking, like people having a conversation. And as she's coming to, this is all happening very quickly, by the way, but as she's coming to, it sounds like a man and a woman, and plain as day, just plain as day, like flesh and blood people having a normal, casual conversation, standing right next to her bed. And she said as soon as that clicked, as soon as she had the immediate realization that there's people in her room, she hears the woman say, "Shh, she can hear us talking." And my mom bolted up out of bed, terrified out of her mind, flips on the light switch, and there's nothing there. Nobody. It would have been impossible for intruders to get from that side of the bed to the door, which was on the other side of the bed, open the door, leave, and also close the door on their way out without being seen or heard by my mother. It wouldn't have happened. That to me is just, sometimes I think, like, if that happened to me, if I was in that situation, I think I would have jumped out of my skin. And from the way my mother tells the story, that's literally what she did. Just bolting up, catapulting herself out of the bed, frightened to death. And that's just one thing that happened in this home. Again, I have a lot of different things I could talk about that happened there, but I just wanted to start with something short and sweet. But I love the podcast. I listen to it every day. I've told so many people about it that they need to check it out. Keep doing what you're doing. And yes, I look forward to more episodes. Thanks.
Thank you, Regina. Now, hearing a phantom conversation is one thing. that can be written off as someone with a television or radio in another room, loud people walking by outside, or even some sort of residual haunting of some sort. But when those voices stop because they notice you listening, well, that sort of realization just might make your heart stop. Or at the very least, pump faster. But either way, it's spooky stuff, Regina. And I can't thank you enough for sharing the show with others. That's how we grow, and that's how we collect more of these spooky stories. And speaking of which, when I come back, I'll tell you how you can submit your story for consideration. And I have a lot more creepy calls to share with you here tonight. So don't touch that dial.
Cleaning before you gently sweep.
You do some damn.
Angels Radio and promote your business right here on...
Now this next call explores yet another ghostly encounter, this time from the state of Vermont. Amanda, welcome back to the show.
Hi, Derek. My name's Amanda. I'm from Vermont. I've called a few times. This story is a ghost and a medium story, and I apologize if it jumps around a little bit. It's just the way the events unfolded. So in 2016, my husband and I purchased a home, and this house was built in the 80s. It had one owner, so I thought we were in good shape. The first night we stayed in the house, I noticed the closet in the master bedroom was very creepy. Like, we have shades that we keep open for the natural light. We have a night light in the hallway for the kids, and you can basically see in the room. But the closet is pitch black. It's like this abyss of darkness, like a dark hole. And I had reflective bags hanging up. I had a light carpet, and I couldn't see any of it. It was just complete darkness. I also felt like something was watching me, and so when I laid down to sleep, my head would face the closet, and I would be too afraid to even turn over because I felt like whatever was in the closet was going to come get me. I'm almost 40, I know, whatever. So I would tell my husband about this, and he didn't want to hear about it because he doesn't like this stuff. So it just kind of went on for like 5 or 6 years, feeling like I was being watched from this dark closet as I went to sleep every night. I want to jump ahead to 2021. My mother-in-law was traveling from Florida to Maine and got really sick in South Carolina and ended up getting in the hospital. And it was not looking good, so my husband had to fly down to be with her as she was dying. And he was wearing one of his favorite T-shirts. It's this old, dirty, gray Boston Bruins hockey T-shirt. It's a favorite shirt he's had. He wore it down there, and about the time he was down there dealing with her death and cremation and stuff, he lost the shirt. And he yelled at the hotel staff thinking they stole it, and he turned the room upside down. He couldn't find it, and he was really upset that he had lost it. I didn't know that this was happening. I was up in Vermont, and I was doing laundry one day that week, and the shirt turned up, and I said, "That's weird. Why does he have a shirt here? He hasn't been here all week." When he got home, he was totally shocked that the shirt had made its way back to Vermont before he did. So the shirt transported somehow from South Carolina to Vermont the week that she died. The night that she died, so this is July of 2021, I was home alone with my kids, and at 3 o'clock in the morning on the dot, this picture frame that I've had over my bureau fell off the wall. Now, her picture is in the middle of this picture frame, and 3 o'clock in the morning, the night she died, this picture frame crashes off the wall. It's been up there for 6 years and lands on top of my bureau. And nothing's broken, and I think immediately, like, oh my God, she came to say goodbye. I can't believe this actually happened. So a little bit of time goes by, a couple of weeks. We have the funeral and the services and stuff for her. And my husband's aunt, she and I, we like all this paranormal stuff, and she'd asked me if I'd like to go medium. And of course I said yes. And when we went there, you know, it was kind of vague stuff. I wasn't really sure I was going to believe it, if she was legit or not. But she said the word flat pumpkin. And my mother-in-law had gifted me many years ago this plastic set of serving trays with pumpkins and gourds on them for Thanksgiving, because I host Thanksgiving. And I thought they were horribly ugly, just not able to fit in any of my drawers, really more of an annoyance. But I kept them because she gave them to me. And a couple weeks after she died, I had put them in the recycling because I just didn't want them anymore. And I said, I'm sorry, Darlene, I got to get rid of these. I don't want them anymore. And I put them in the recycling. And when the medium said flat pumpkin, I knew that she was there because those serpent trays have these flat pumpkins on them, like the design. So my husband's aunt asked the medium, she said, do you know if Darlene knocked the photo off the wall the night she died? And the medium looked at me dead in the eyes and said, no, it wasn't her. It was the man in your closet. And I just about died when she said that. I dropped my notebook and pen, and I immediately started tearing up because I hadn't told anybody except my husband about my thoughts about somebody in the closet. So we talked a little more to this medium, and she told me his name. His name was Charlie, and he had lived on the land long before they had built all these houses here, and that he just liked it and he didn't want to leave. And she told me if I wanted him to leave, I had to tell him to do so. It took me a couple of weeks to muster the courage to even talk to this ghost in my closet, acknowledging him. And once I did, I kind of did it like every day to build up a relationship. And once I felt comfortable, I asked him to go to the light and to leave the house. And I kid you not, like that night, I went to bed and there was light shining in the closet, and I could see the reflection of my bags, and I could see the light-colored carpet, and I could breathe a little easier because I knew he left. So kind of a weird connection of events, but yeah, that's my ghost and medium story. Thanks, Derek. I appreciate the show. Bye.
Thank you, Amanda, for calling in. Now listen, I'm not saying that it's impossible, because I do believe that some people out there have certain abilities one would consider quote-unquote psychic. But that said, I'm always very skeptical of anyone claiming to be a medium. In my experience, most of those people are just vultures preying on the lonely and the grief-stricken. But sometimes, a story crosses my path that really makes me appreciate when a real ability is evident. And Amanda's story just might be one of those. Because realistically, how likely is it that this psychic medium would bring up flat pumpkins? What a random connection to make. And that randomness certainly lends to the validity of this medium's claims. But to have her then bring up the man in the closet, I have no words other than thank you, Amanda. Thank you for the amazing story, and thank you for having the bravery to share it. Now, folks, if you have a story you would like to bravely share on the show, give my hotline a call at 888-608-NIGHT. That's 888-608-NIGHT. Or better yet, record your story as a voice memo on your phone and email it to me at monstersamonguspodcast@gmail.com. Now, a voice memo is certainly the best way to guarantee that your call will have the highest quality possible. But either method is greatly appreciated. And that number again is 888-608-NIGHT. And that email again is monstersamonguspodcast@gmail.com. Well, if you don't mind, let's make this a trifecta. Another ghostly entry. This time from Rebecca, up in Wisconsin.
Hi, my name's Rebecca. I'm calling from Wisconsin, and that's where my story takes place. So around the age of 14, we had just moved to a new town. My parents had just separated, so we didn't really have a whole lot at the time. But I was getting ready for school one morning, so I decided to take a shower. And we only had a clear curtain at the time, being that we didn't have much. And I am washing my hair. Mid-shampoo, I see this dark figure hunched over, looking towards me. Now, I couldn't see any distinct features of like a face or anything, but it was just this dark mass, about 4 feet tall. And I was terrified. I screamed for my mother. I didn't care if she could see through the curtain or not. It was freaky. And she comes in and I'm like, there is something in here. She's like, what are you talking about? And she looks in the room. It was a very small room. All the lights were on. There's no clothes hanging on the door or on the floor. And she's like, what? I don't see anything. And I was still freaked out, but I was like, well, I'd have to finish my shower. And so I finished my shower and I get out and my mom says, well, I think I know what you've seen. And I'm like, what? And so a little side note on my mom, she has been a psychic her whole life. She's been able to see and hear many things, and growing up with her was definitely interesting. But she is also very close with the Ho-Chunk Nation, and they have many stories of these things called water spirits, which kind of like other Native American stories is you're not supposed to say their name or it gives them power, I guess. Well, I guess like to be around water, and they feed off of negativity. Well, she then proceeds to tell me about a lady who came to her and told her a story about time that she seen what she believed was one of these beings. So the lady, I guess, was working at a place along a river, and she is passing by a window and looks out. And in this tree, she sees this hairy, short thing that's looking right at her. And it hops out of the tree and just keeps staring at her. And she gets this feeling like she's not supposed to be seeing it. Just like how I felt. So I guess the thing jumps into the water and she sees nothing after that. But I don't know, her story seems more like a mini Bigfoot, I guess, but I don't know, super weird. But anyways, I love the podcast and keep up the good work.
Now here is an interesting one. Could this simply have been some sort of pareidolia that Rebecca experienced? Perhaps a shadow that looked enough like a person to trick her brain, even if only momentarily. Or perhaps it was some sort of ghost, spirit, or specter, an entity that resides within the walls of the home and only makes an appearance from time to time. Or even, as Rebecca's mother seemed to allude, some sort of water spirit. Now, I had Delaney do a little bit of digging on this subject, and to no one's surprise, there's not a lot of information out there about it. I assume this is one of those subjects that is taught orally, and not something that is frequently documented. But what we did find was downright terrifying. Known to the Ho-Chunk and Winnebago people as the Wakjahe, a race of water-dwelling creatures that others know simply as water spirits. They're rumored to be scaly, four-footed beasts said to possess horns like an ox, an impossibly long tail, and a near-human face. Other depictions describe a feline appearance, something reminiscent of a panther, but having a huge serpentine tail that legend says can wrap around an entire hill. Now, they may assume the form of any animal. The snake is particularly common, but other sources also mention beaver, elk, deer, and even bear. Now, the Wakjahe generally are associated with evil powers, but one can encounter a good water spirit, which is said to be helpful to the people. Now, water spirits are rarely seen above the ground or out of the water. They live in deep pools or behind waterfalls, but they also have subterranean abodes. Now, their ferocity is not limited to swallowing swimming cervids, ungulates, deer, that sort of thing, but extends to the eating of human flesh. Now, one water spirit in particular is known to eat children who swam in the headwaters of the Mississippi River. It is said that the bodies would wash up on shore, and those that did had gaping holes in the top of their heads. Now, I can't help but notice how eerily similar this legend sounds to the infamous water babies of Pyramid Lake in Nevada. But what exactly was it that was in Rebecca's bathroom? A Wakjehe, a water spirit? Well, from the sounds of things, I sure hope not. But either way, thank you again, Rebecca, for sharing the call.
Saturday, February 15th at 8 p.m. Purchase.
Look, we all have our own struggles.
To ignore the things that give us pause. That seem out of...
Now I have a cluster of calls coming up that are so similar that you might even call it uncanny. Please welcome Kobe to tonight's podcast.
Hi, Derek. My name's Kobe. I'm calling from northeastern Colorado. I'm traveling from, and I know you say not to call from a moving car, but this is happening right now. Anyways, I'm traveling from Fort Morgan, Colorado to Brighton, Colorado along I-75. And up in the sky, as I'm driving, I see like a silvery, like reflective object moving around. Like, I've driven this road before. I'm driving this road to go to church right now. I've driven this road many, many times, and I've never seen air traffic like this. And you see air traffic traveling kind of where this thing was, but not quite as low as this thing was, because these planes are traveling to Denver International Airport. So I'm used to seeing air traffic along this route, but right now, after I just seen this thing, the planes that you'd normally see moving towards DIA are all the planes are like, there's so many planes coming from so many different directions, and I see a black something moving across the highway right now, straight ahead of me. It's like right in front of me right now in my field of view, probably a mile out, and it just crossed over the highway. Oh, I also saw something silver and, I don't know, kind of, I can't really give you a shape. It was just kind of flat. But I saw something silver and like pop into existence, basically. I thought I was losing my mind. It just popped into existence right here, like in the sky, and they're like, plane, like the normal air, you never saw planes moving this way. Like, this is insane. I've never seen any of this. Like, so many planes up in the sky moving. I really hope there's so many other people calling this in right now, because there's so many other cars on the highway, but I can't, there's got to be other people seeing this. I probably better get off the phone now, but thank you, Derek, for everything that you do. I love the podcast. I've been listening for a couple months. This is so weird. So many different planes flying overhead, and I've never seen this many planes in the air at one time. I also saw like 5, 6 maybe white orbs kind of flashing in and out of existence around one of these silver flat objects. So weird. This is the weirdest thing I've ever seen. Thank you, Derek. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Kobe. Now, before I continue, I need to point out that I-75 does not run through Colorado. It does, however, run through the state of Ohio, where the college football national champions reside. Just slipping that in there. So perhaps he was referring to State Highway 75, which does run through parts of the Rocky Mountain state. But either way, we did a search, not only of my own files, but of the National UFO Reporting Center as well, and we didn't find anything that seemed to describe the event that Kobe is referring to. But from the sounds of things, he saw quite a show. So maybe others did see the same strange activity that our caller did, and either they didn't bother to report it, or they did report it, and the information was scrubbed by a 3-letter agency or worse. And although we couldn't find a match, I did find several other calls that seemed to describe something with a similar description. Take Richie's entry out of California as an example.
Hey Derek, this is Richie. This happened in the mid-90s. I was about like 6 or 7 years old. It was a UFO sighting. I was at my grandparents' house here in Santa Ana, in Orange County, California. Yeah, so we were there out in front of my grandparents' house, and I hear one of my cousins yelling, UFO, UFO, and pointing up to the sky, and I was still, 6 or 7 years old, not knowing what UFO even meant. So I go run towards him, I look up in the sky, and I see this circular object that was at least 100 feet in diameter, and maybe 500 to 1,000 feet in the air, just slowly gliding in the sky. Yeah, there was like 4 or 5 of my cousins there who witnessed this, so it only lasted about a minute till it was out of our sight. But I remember my cousins just being absolutely terrified because they were a little bit older than me, and I think they knew what a UFO was. And I remember one of my cousins especially was crying in the corner for how scared he was. And that's when I realized, like, oh, okay, maybe this is pretty serious, you know, like maybe we're not supposed to be seeing this or something. But yeah, just the fact that also nobody remembers this either. None of my cousins or my brothers remember this story. And the fact that I also remember the very next morning or maybe even that night that there was even a news coverage about the sighting, I also vividly remember that. So I feel like that makes this story like more believable to me, and that it wasn't just a dream that I came up with in my head or something, like through time. But yeah, so I'm just hoping one of your listeners can, recall this story or something, just to let me know that I'm not crazy. But the fact that I've also been looking all over for this news coverage of the sighting and not being able to find anything of it kind of has been making me lose hope that it ever did happen. So this is kind of like my last effort. So hopefully somebody remembers it. But yeah, it was a UFO sighting, just your standard typical UFO. It was a good size, at least 100 feet, and like 500 to 1,000 feet in the sky. Yeah, I think that's it. But thank you, Derek. Thank you for everything you do. Seriously, I appreciate it. And have a good one, man.
Thank you, Richie. Now, just like with Kobe, we did an extensive search, but we were not able to locate the report that was mentioned in the call. But again, that doesn't mean it didn't happen or it doesn't exist. So if you've seen something or have further information on either of these experiences, please do let us know. Now, in lieu of further information, I instead offer you another similar encounter. Brenna from South Carolina. Welcome to the program.
Hello, Derek. My name is Brenna. During the last week of April in 2023, I was visiting family in Greer, South Carolina. Greer is in the northwest corner of the state in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains. During that month of April, my dog was fighting a persistent stomach infection, so he was waking me up in the middle of the night every night to take him outside. I had gotten used to jumping out of bed, grabbing my flashlight, and racing him out into the yard so he could do his business and feel better. I passed the time outside looking at the sky. Greer is far enough away from city lights that you can get a great view of the stars, the planets, the Milky Way galaxy. But on this one night in particular, in that last week of April, it was overcast. Low-hanging clouds were mixing with drifting light fog and misty drizzle. So it was about 3 a.m. My dog was in the yard, and I was standing in the driveway looking west at this shimmering, swirling sky when I noticed something coming into view, heading east straight toward me. Now, Greer is home to a large airport, so we see planes in the sky and all kind of weather. But I immediately recognized that this something was not an airplane, or a helicopter, or a drone, or a blimp, or a balloon. It was unlike anything I'd seen before. It was a massive silver sphere. It looked like a giant, mirror-polished ball bearing, just flying through the sky, emitting a red, faint glow. Based on calculations I did later, I estimate the sphere was about 50 to 75 feet in diameter and that it was flying between 300 to 400 feet above the ground, well below the cloud layer. I got a really good look at it because it flew directly over my head, silently, smoothly, moving in a straight line and at a consistent speed of about 30 miles an hour. It was so close I was able to illuminate it with my flashlight, one of those powerful so-called tactical lights you see in the infomercials. I can say definitively that it had no wings. There were no windows or FAA lights, no visible logos or symbols, no obvious control surfaces or means of propulsion. It was most definitely not the planet Venus, a shooting star, ball lightning, or swamp gas. It was clearly a manufactured flying craft of some kind, and it was obviously under intelligent control. The most striking thing about its appearance, and the image that will be burned into my memory forever, was that the red glow it emitted wasn't uniform. It didn't glow equally from everywhere on its surface like a light bulb. Rather, the glow seemed to be produced by dark flames that flickered and danced beneath its mirrored surface, sort of how light will shine through the backside of a two-way mirror. It looked like a glowing ember in a campfire. I was able to watch this craft up close for a full minute as it continued due east before the waves of fog obscured the view. When it was gone, I stood there in the driveway dumbfounded. I created some digital renders in Photoshop to approximate what I saw and where I saw it. I've included them with the submission. The renders are fairly accurate, but they can't convey the wonder and the awe I experienced witnessing this thing. Derek, I wanted to share this story with your listeners because recently I was listening to your podcast and I heard a caller describe a UFO that he saw as also resembling a burning ember. Maybe we both saw the same kind of craft, or maybe we saw crafts using the same kind of propulsion system. I don't know. I would not be surprised to learn someday that what I saw was a secret military anti-gravity ship, but I would also not be surprised to learn that what I saw was from another planet or another dimension. I hope that someday I'll find out. For now, I'm just going to keep watching the sky and listening to your show to see if anyone else sees this thing. Keep doing great work, Derek. We all appreciate it.
Thank you, Brenna. Now, Brenna, if it's other witnesses that you're looking for, I think you're really going to enjoy this segment overall, because I have a slew of them. Now, true to their word, Brenna sent in those composite images discussed in their entry. So take a look if you're brave. MonstersAmongUsPodcast.com and click the Show Notes tab. And I'll also have Sarah toss them up on our social media accounts. And you might think that that's the end of these strange, silent UFO stories. But not so fast, my friend. I have one more that I'd like to share with you. One with a lot of characteristics you'll probably think sound familiar. The same glowing red ball that Brenna saw. A similar, huge object to what Richie witnessed. And this occurs in the same state that Kobe had his encounter. Please welcome Zoe to tonight's program.
Hi, Derek. My name is Zoe. I am going to be talking about my first UFO experience. I was a junior in high school. It was about 2012 in Colorado. I was with one of my really good friends driving home from a state basketball game in Pueblo. We were headed back towards Manitou Springs, which is where I lived at the time, and we're getting off the highway. It's about 10 or 11 at night. There is this big park called Garden of the Gods, and for people who are familiar with this area, it's definitely a really cool place. It's where everyone kind of hangs out. It's very touristy, but it's a well-known park. We're getting off the highway, and when you're getting off this certain exit, you are practically facing the park, and there's these two giant rocks and a big gap in the middle. And as we're getting off, I look up, and there is this giant white light. I can't really explain the color. I guess it would be like a yellow-orange color. It's pulsating. And I mean, this thing is huge, and it's closer to the ground. These rocks are big, but they're not like, massive. So this light is in the middle pulsating at me. And as it's pulsating, I can see a darker thing behind it. So like, it's definitely a craft. The light is attached to something, and I swear I felt like I was looking at this thing for like hours, but it couldn't have been maybe more than 10 seconds. And as I'm looking at it, it almost felt like it saw that I saw it. Like it felt that I had noticed it. And in this second, it flashed at me and then zoomed off. And I should have seen it come out from the other side of one of these rocks, but it was almost like it went behind it and then just took off into the sky and just disappeared. it was unreal how quickly this thing moved, and there was a trail of light behind it. Like, I feel like, I don't know, I know that I saw it, but I felt like it was just too unreal. Like, it just did not make any sense. And when it disappeared, the second it disappeared, my whole body just, I realized that I was clenching. Like, my hands were clenched, my jaw, like I was in shock. And I instantly started crying. Like, I burst into tears. And the friend that I was with started freaking out, but also like, what the hell? Like, what's going on? Because we were in like mid-conversation before this happened. And I tried to explain to her what was happening and what I saw. And I felt nuts saying it out loud to her. Just felt like something I was making up. I knew she wasn't going to believe me. But as I'm telling her, she has no reaction. And then after I tell her and I'm just crying like a baby, she calmly just told me that these things follow her around. She said they follow her around. Her dad has seen them. Her dad was a trucker. He's been through some stuff, and that's for a whole other call. But it just blew me away. So she instantly believed me. And this is the first experience that really solidified that there is stuff out there that we cannot explain for me. Like, this was the one experience that I had that just, I took off after this. I also want to add that in this area, we are near Colorado Springs, and it is a city, and we see aircrafts and helicopters, and this was not. My mom is in the Air Force. She's been in the Air Force for about 35 years, and I've been around different air bases and stuff. This is nothing that I have seen before, unless it is like a secret craft that the government has, which I wouldn't put it past them. This is nothing that I have ever seen. So anyway, I believe in paranormal stuff, ghosts, all of that. And now I know that there is stuff out there that is in other galaxies, other planets. I mean, we are not the only things here. So it's what really led me down this road. And then I found your podcast, and I have held on to this story for years, and I have always wanted to tell, a bunch of people, and I've tried to tell some friends and stuff, and they just brush it off, oh, you've seen something cool, but I really want to tell a group of people that will understand, and I feel like it just feels great to be able to get it out, and you having this platform means so much to me and all of us. So thank you for giving us a place to speak. Anyway, I just want to say thank you. You're awesome. Keep up the good work, and bye.
Thank you, Zoe. We might have just found the epicenter here, because Colorado seems to be a bright ball of light hotspot. And according to the research that Delaney did, these sightings have been occurring out there for quite some time. Now, both of these encounters occurred in the state of Colorado. On December 4th, 1952, a round aluminum-colored object, which appeared to be 20 feet in diameter, traveled at an estimated speed of 600 to 800 miles per hour. Now, sources state that the object appeared to be tumbling end over end to change shape. And on October 2nd, 1966, an observer noted a white, very bright object that was round in shape and appeared to have things shooting from it. The object was still in view when the observer went back to bed. The white object was visible for nearly a whole hour. Now again, both of these sightings were reported from the state of Colorado, and both were reported to and investigated by Project Blue Book. You can find full links in tonight's show notes. So if it's not a giant black triangle in the sky, it seems to be a round, shiny ball. There's definitely something going on out there, and I thank all 4 of our callers for telling us all about it.
Call right now, 888-948. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax.
All your music to your phone to listen offline with no connection. And so...
All right. Our next fear-inducing entry comes to us from parts unknown. Please join me in welcoming Jesse to the program.
Hi, my name is Jesse, and I grew up in a small town in rural North Dakota, and I had some friends that lived on an old 3-story farmhouse out in the country, big, huge house. And one time when I was about probably 10 or 12 years old, I was spending the night with my friend, and his room was on the second floor of the house. And I woke up in the middle of the night because I had to use the restroom. And I walked out into the hallway, and I turned to the right, and all of a sudden I had this feeling like I was being watched. And I turned around, and down at the far end of the hallway, there was a woman standing there. She was tall, lean, wearing a nightgown of some sort, with long blonde hair, and she had sort of a bluish aura about her. And we stared at each other for probably 5 or 6 seconds, and then she continued walking down the hallway. It was sort of an L-shaped hallway, and she was going down the shorter end of it towards the stairway. Well, immediately I was terrified. I turned around, I ran back to the bedroom, I jumped under the covers, and I hid. Well, in the morning, I didn't tell anybody because I was afraid they were going to make fun of me. And so 4 or 5 years go by, and I'm spending the night at their house again. And this time I'm sleeping on a couch downstairs, and in the middle of the night, I just woke up for no reason. And I'm looking around the house, and all of a sudden I see this woman coming out from the stairway where I had seen the ghost previously, and it was the exact same woman, tall, lean, long blonde hair with a bluish aura. And she stood there, and she looked at me for a moment, maybe 5, 6 seconds, and then she kept walking across the big, formal dining room, and I could no longer see her. And then again, I was just terrified, covered myself under the blankets, and just tried to go back to sleep. I doubt that I slept. In the morning, I never told anybody. I just knew my friend and his parents and his brothers and sisters would make fun of me. Well, years went by, and I had moved away from home, and one weekend, my girlfriend and I decided to go back to my hometown to visit, and we decided to stay at this friend's house. And on the drive there, probably about a 3-hour drive, I had told her what had happened. And she was the first person I had ever mentioned it to, and she kind of thought it was funny. She didn't really, believe it. And I told her that, after the second experience, I never felt comfortable in that house if I was alone. Like if everyone else was in the yard and I had to go inside, I always felt uneasy. Anyway, we get there and we're chatting around with everybody, and it comes time to go to bed. And we take one of the bedrooms that are upstairs. There's lots of bedrooms in this house because it's huge, basically a mansion for the day. And in the morning we wake up, and there was all sorts of commotion going on down in the kitchen. There had been some other people, some relatives, also spending the night, and they're all just excitedly talking about one of the girls had seen a ghost that night, and she went on to describe it. And my girlfriend starts kicking me underneath the table. Tell them. And her description of what she had seen that night was exactly like mine, to a T. And so I wound up telling my friends, and they had never seen anything, they had never heard anything, but they always felt that there was something strange in the house. And ever since having somebody else sort of confirm what I had seen, I have been a firm believer in ghosts. I don't believe that every, thing that everybody sees out there is truly a ghost. I know your eyes can play tricks on you, but I am very confident that I was wide awake and what I saw was a real spirit. And that's my story. I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you, Jesse. It's always good to have confirmation, validation, corroboration. But how odd that the people that actually lived there didn't see the entity. I truly wonder what that is all about. And why the blue hue of all colors? Well, if you get a kick out of Jesse's Blue Lady, you'll likely enjoy a visit to our show notes, because we've included a few other Blue Lady legends from around the world, if you would like to learn more. And while you're on the website, you ought to check out our merchandise shop, because right now everything in it is 20% off. Everything. T-shirts, hats, stickers, posters, pens, Christmas tree ornaments, drawstring bags, you name it, it's 20% off. But only for a limited time. So do not delay. Visit monstersamonguspodcast.com and click that shop tab. Alright, you weirdos. It's time for tonight's final entry. And any longtime listener of this program knows that I'm a stickler about skinwalker stories, because location is key. Frankly, I don't think there are that many skinwalkers in New England or Alabama. But we're not going to have any issues with that here tonight, because Justin's entry out of Montana meets all the criteria for a genuine skinwalker experience. So please join me in welcoming Justin to tonight's program.
Hi, this is Justin out in Montana. I've been listening to the podcast nights here at work, and I've been putting off calling in and telling this thing that happened to me. Decided it was a good time to do it. Anyway, so I was going down to visit a friend down in Utah, a guy from high school. So I'm driving down from Montana and going down there, and I get down there. It's the first night that I get there kind of like towards the afternoon. So me, him, and his son go up the reservoir to do some fishing. And we catch some fish and wrap up the afternoon and go back to the house. And at the time, I really don't know the layout of how everything is, this house, and where it is in relation to everything, but it's kind of out there. And it's all desert. This is down in Moab, Utah. Anyway, so nighttime is, say we're out back and we got a fire going, and we've cooked the trout over the fire, and we're just kind of sitting there, kind of quiet. We're just watching the embers, and the fire, and so it's quiet. And all of a sudden, his dog starts. I hear this zing on the leash. Like, I didn't even realize that he had a dog back there. It was quiet. There's a zing on the leash as it takes off, barking in this direction. He's at the end of his leash. He's barking. I'm looking over, and it's kind of at the edge of the house, and he's got a motion light on the side of the house, and boom, the motion light comes on. So this all happens like, 5-6 seconds. Of course, the dog gets our attention, and then the light pops on. But I'm looking, and there's nothing, going on. And all of a sudden, he's got a tree, there's one single tree, and it's at the edge of the house. But like where the light is hitting, you can see around the tree. It's kind of like the light's hitting on both sides of the tree. Anyway, all of a sudden, like at the base of the tree, it just like steps out from behind the tree or just appears there. But this huge white owl appears at the base of the tree. It must have been 3-foot high owl. It was huge. And it turns its head, looks over at us. I can see the like black eyes on the white body. Looks at us, turns its head back, and the wings go out. Like I can see, and then I can hear the like the air from under the wings of this owl, and like must have taken 2 like flaps, and then all of a sudden it disappears and turns into, and I don't know if it disappeared and turned into this person or how it all happened. It just happened in a blink of an eye. All of a sudden, from the tree, there's this naked Native American looking man walking determinedly, like he didn't look at us or anything, and just like into the black of the desert. And there's no way he came from the other side of the tree where the light from the house was going. it was just, it was crazy. And the way it all happened, it was like almost like this owl like turned into this man, and the man was moving fast. He didn't look at us. He just moved. And I looked over at my friend and I was like, did you see that? It was like a man, and it was the owl, like, and he was just like, well, that kind of stuff happens a little bit around here. He's like, you're not really supposed to talk about it. It's kind of a native thing. I was like, what the heck? So, like, the night kind of went on. I was real sketched out just from the way it was, the way that it all happened, the way the owl, like, looked at us and, like, met eyes with us. It was weird. Then it just, in the blink of an eye, turning into this, I mean, that guy must have been 6.5 feet tall, tan skin, you know, completely nude. And, like, we weren't even there, just walking. But he didn't walk from, he, like, just appeared from when the owl flew up. It was just crazy. And so anyway, then the next morning when I woke up and I go out, you know, I'm out back drinking some coffee, and I'm just, like, looking to where this man was walking, and it's just desert. There's nothing there. You know, so if he was coming from wherever, and he didn't have any neighbors, so and it's not like this guy was just walking, unless there was just some naked man with a pet owl walking through, you know, the desert at nighttime. I don't know, but apparently it happens down there, and the way my friend said it, it's like things that must have happened, you know, before. But the next day, after the morning, and I was looking in the back, and like, where could this guy come from? You know, I felt really weird about it, the whole thing. I had a bad feeling. So I was later on that evening when the sun's going down, I'm in the back of my truck messing around with some stuff, and I hear like laughing, like kids laughing almost. And when I like look down, like look over down the road, nothing there. It's just desert. I started messing around again, and then I'm hearing it almost like, hey. And I look over again, there's like something disappears, a shadow, like, I don't know. It was like something that was there, and it dipped down into the shadow of these little thickets. And I don't know, there was just really some weird stuff going on there. And later on, after I left, I like looked into what it might be, and I don't know, I'm thinking maybe it could be a skinwalker or something. But I know after that incident, you know, a lot of bad stuff happened in my life. And I was talking to some natives, and they said they can curse you. So I don't know what it was or what it all meant, but that's what that was a weird thing that happened to me down in Utah, in Moab. So, but that's my story. I just wanted to call and contribute to the show. All right, thanks.
Thank you, Justin, for calling in. Well, isn't that something? An owl that seemed to transform into a human. Not the first time we've heard that description. Of course, the obvious connection here is one that I'd already mentioned. The Skinwalker. A legend of the Navajo people, and I believe a few other groups in the Four Corners area, not too far from where this encounter took place. Now, for those of you that might have been living under a rock lately, here is a little about the Skinwalker legend, courtesy of a member of the Ute tribe out of Utah, Robert Paiute Hessen, and the television program Lost Tapes.
For Native people, the Skinwalker is considered a witch. The Navajo name is Yenadalushi. Yenadalushi means he who walks on all four legs.
According to Native American mythology, one became a skinwalker by killing a member of one's own family. This was the initiation into the realm of being a skinwalker, and acquires a special supernatural power of being able to take on the appearance of any animal that it may wish.
He'll kill livestock, even kill humans, just to get their souls or their spirits.
But you know, the Skinwalker isn't the only likely suspect here. Just a few hundred miles south of the Four Corners area exists another transforming witch legend that feels eerily similar. They call her La Lechuza.
Stories of La Lechuza are common on both sides of the border of the Rio Grande in Tejano and Mexican folklore. La Lechuza translates directly to the owl in English, but it denotes a malevolent witch said to prey on drunks and children. There are countless stories of large owls peeking into bedroom windows late at night, only for parents to find unexplained scratches on their babies in the morning, alleged victims of La Lechuza. In some iterations, they are familiars. In others, they are cursed, their transformation involuntary, while still other tales claim they were once human women who seek vengeance.
Now that clip from PBS's Monstrum, a great program about cryptids that really gets to the bottom of some of these legends. Now if you haven't given it a watch, I think you probably should. But listen, Lechuza isn't the only other option here, either. Although the location of this next possible offender is a bit further geographically. Description-wise, it's dead on. But first I have to tell you about a group of people known as the Seminole. A name that should sound familiar to any Florida State fan. They were a group of people native to those lands in South Florida that were forcibly removed by the U.S. government beginning back in 1835. And relocated to reservation land in present-day Oklahoma. And I'm not talking about them being bussed there, sent on wagon trains. These poor people were forced to migrate on foot, 1,200 miles, through all seasons, through all weather, in sickness and in health. But let's be honest, it was mostly sickness. And those that survived did so miraculously. And those that did brought many of their stories along with them, including the tale of the Stakini. Now the Stakini of Seminole folklore originates as a evil witch who transforms themselves into owl-like beings. By day they still resemble Seminole people, but by night they vomit up their souls along with their internal organs and become undead owl monsters that feed on human hearts. In some Seminole communities, speaking their name is thought to put you at risk for turning into one. So Stakini stories are only told by certain medicine people within the community. Another story that certainly fits what Justin saw. And I don't even have time to tell you about the Apache legend of the Big Owl Man. The translation for that is missing. But I did link to what I found in tonight's show notes, if you'd like to explore further. The point here is that there are all sorts of legends floating around this area and the surrounding areas that help lend credence to Justin's entry. And you know, it might not be a coincidence that each of these legends stems from Native American legend. Perhaps they know something that we don't. Well, whatever it was you saw out there, Justin, it made for an incredible entry, and we can't thank you enough for taking the time to call it in. And what a way to end this one, huh, folks? As someone that does a decent amount of driving in the expanses of the great American Southwest, I find these tales to be just a little extra creepy, especially when you're out there at night. Just the headlights, the stars, and the asphalt ribbon that unfolds in front of you. And of course, the Owl Man, hovering above your vehicle. All right, folks, that's going to do it for this episode. Monsters Among Us podcast is written and produced by me, Derek Hayes. Copyright Red Crow Media. Additional support is provided by Sarah Carter Hayes and Delaney Bowers. All media used in this production is done so under the protection of fair use. Give us a like and follow on our social media accounts. Follow us on YouTube and leave us a couple likes there as well if you could. Now don't forget you can catch the show every Saturday evening at 11 p.m. Eastern on the UNX Digital Network. Just visit unxnetwork.com to learn more. And finally, tonight's score was provided by Iron Cthulhu Apocalypse, Code at AG Music, and Carl Casey at White Bat Audio. Now you know the drill, folks. Join our Patreon or get paid content on our Apple homepage. $5 gets you the rest of this episode and something like 2 days worth of additional back content, going back half a decade or so. Hours and hours and hours of content, all for the price of half a cup of coffee a month. And you can test drive all of this for free with either program's 7-day free trial. Visit monstersamonguspodcast.com and click the Patreon tab to learn more. Now, don't go anywhere, because I have a surprise for you. But if you do cut out early, at least have a good night. I'll see you in a few.
Portions of the following are pre-recorded.
Years old, pitched in 22 games for the Halos last year with 2-2.
That Ohio State's going to repeat next year.
I need to finish my...
Now the surprise here is one more phone call. A weird call, per usual. So see if you can identify what this anonymous caller saw standing by his dumpster.
Hey, so I've been listening to your podcast for a little while, and I'm really loving it. So, not too long ago, I was taking out trash, and we have a dumpster near our house. So, I usually walk it to the dumpster. Okay, so a little bit more context behind this. This freaked me out a lot, so it's kind of hard to explain. What happened was, it's pitch black outside, barely any light. There's a street light like 2 streets down. I had a flashlight and that was it. I'm walking to this dumpster and I keep hearing noises behind me. But when I turn around, there's nothing there. So, when I'm taking this garbage to the dumpster, I'm looking around trying to find what's making the noise. And I had 2 more loads that I had to take out. I kept on hearing noises behind me. But when I turn around, there's nothing there. When I get to the dumpster, I throw the garbage in there, turn around, and I see 4 black, beady eyes just staring back at me. It was creepy. I don't know what it was. It looked crippled and bent, and it didn't even look human, really. It was on 2 legs. It was legs kind of bent weird. One was shorter than the other. It didn't even look like anything I'd ever heard of. When I turned to go to the street to where I was in the line of sight of views, it was gone. So, I don't exactly know what it was. You could just shine some light on it for me. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.
Thank you, caller. Well, what do you think, listeners? A werewolf, a Bigfoot, a family of raccoons in a trench coat. Discuss your favorite theories amongst yourselves. And in the meantime, thank you again, caller, for sharing the entry. All right, folks, it's time for me to go beyond. The bonus show at the end of every Thursday episode, where we explore a few more calls before we call it a night. Calls like Lennon's from Parts Unknown.
Hey, Derek. So I am a dark tourist and paranormal investigator. My name is Lennon, and as such, I have a plethora of stories. One of the stories that I want to tell you today, though, is about Lemp Mansion in Missouri. So it was my first time visiting St. Louis, and we absolutely had to stay overnight at Lemp Mansion. If you're familiar with the story of Lemp Mansion, it is a family home that was passed down for a couple of generations, but tragically, people in the family kept experiencing accidents or unfortunately passed due to suicide, and it's known as one of the most haunted locations in the United States. If you want to stay overnight, you can book a room, and at around 10:30, the entire staff just leaves, and it's just you and whoever else booked a room overnight, and you're alone with the mansion.